With everything that's been going on, we have to be fully transparent with ourselves that our mindset has been challenged. The way when I talk with clients, you see that we as entrepreneurs, we tend to wear our Superman cape with such a pride. And sometimes it's actually not the best for us. So I often talk with my clients and I tell them, and we talk about there's a duality within us. There's a human and there's a Superman. We tend to embody the Superman really well, but we forget to take care of the human. It's like in the movies, there's Superman, but there's also Clark Kent. And we need to take care of Clark Kent to be able to become, whenever we activate, our own version of Superman. So this week we have with us a very special friend, and it's Alan Mallory, who is an international speaker, and he talks about mental health. And the way our conversation today went really around purposeful thinking. And really, how do we go back and being more intentional? And what does the human within us need to become and embody the person and the leader we want to be? And seriously, when we embody that, we live our greatest life ever. And when we live our greatest life ever, that is the best gift that we can give ourselves, our clients, and our entire business. Because when you meet somebody who's really like on the ball in living their life, thriving their life, we want to be with that person. We want to work with her. I'm like, I want to have a life like that person. I want to work with this person, but we have to go first. So let's go to my interview with Alan. Alan, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and fitting me into your schedule somewhere.
My pleasure.
So, Alan, I wanted to reach out, and we're both part of the Speakers Association, and you talk about a topic that is so important. But before we really dig into the topic today, could you take a moment and introduce yourself, please, for the people who don't know you yet?
Okay, well, I'm Alan Mallory. I'm from Canada, and I speak internationally on various topics, certainly performance and mental health, but I went through my own mental health journey, but I think we'll get into, and that was one of the reasons that got me into speaking. My background is actually quite technical. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and then I got into project management from there. But I've certainly moved more towards the psychological focus in recent years, and part of that is my own interest, and I've been, what I say, motivated to continue pursuing it because I've seen the small gains in my own life. So.
So that's quite the shift, going from very rational engineering to mental health. What made you go and do that trip and really explore that area, which is what you really talk a lot about now, is taking care of our own mental health?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's something that a lot of people that come from a technical background do have challenges with. And it's because we get a lot of, say, training, especially, when I went through my undergraduate in engineering, it's a lot of training in the technical side, but not so much in the people side and introspection and knowing how your mind works and those types of things, which I think to be well balanced in any vocation, you kind of need a bit of both, and to be an effective even engineer or any other technical field, I think it behooves you to work on that side. In my case, I started studying the human mind really after high school, and it's because when I was in grade 10, I developed a fairly severe social phobia and anxiety disorder, which is known as generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. And it's maybe a little bit ironic that I do what I do now in terms of speaking at conferences all over the place, because anything I thought that could potentially result in public embarrassment, I would avoid that at all cost. But our minds flag those instances as threats, even though they're just in our mind. And so that begins to morph and expand and affect many different areas of our lives, and that's what happened in my case. And I started having a lot of really negative physiological effects, and eventually morphed into depression after a bunch of years, and I was kind of just living in my own mind, playing those mental movies that of past disasters or envisioning future disasters, that so many of us kind of get stuck in, that mental negative rumination. And eventually, after a lot of years, I just decided enough's enough. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I started studying the human mind, getting my hands on the books that talked about what I was going through to try to make those deeper cognitive changes. And it became quite a passion of mine. I eventually went on to get my master's in psychology, which again is a little bit odd for someone who has an engineering degree. But I would say what motivated me to continue down that path, as I touched on, was the fact that when I actually, took it seriously and started to develop these what would you call them, cognitive practices, I guess, and I started to see gains in my own life, and so then that motivated me to continue on. And I think that's important, because it's a lot of work, you could say, but so you kind of want to make sure you're pursuing any kind of personal growth solution long enough to be able to say, okay, this is working for me or this isn't. And how you know is whether you're seeing benefits in your life. And in my case, I started seeing benefits. So then I said, well, there's something to this, and I want to live a good life, so I'm going to continue down this path.
I love that. And I love that. I want to continue living a good life. And I find so many of the people, the majority of the people who are watching us are service-based entrepreneurs, very highly intellectual. So we have a lot of investment advisor, accountants, lawyers, business coaches, different types of coaches, consultants. And you said two things that are very interesting. You spoke about anxiety and depression. And when we talk about entrepreneurship, I often hear, people often say it's lonely at the top. And entrepreneurs tend to wear their Superman cape as a badge of honor. And being able to explore of, okay, am I living in anxiety or am I living in depression? How do people get those signs? Because if that's a pattern that they've always been living in, how do we say, oh, stop the hamster wheel and identify where am I living?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I was. And there's certainly, there's kind of somatic indicators. If you continue, my baseline level of anxiety was kind of like the norm was elevated. And so I always had just kind of like a really fast heart rate and the other physiological symptoms associated with anxiety. And so I guess it's, how do you identify that? I think most people kind of know, because there will be times, let's say when you're about to go to bed or when you just wake up, where you finally, your body's back to a relaxed state. Now, not all anxiety is bad, and that's the Yerkes-Dodson law that in order to perform at your best, you do want to have a little bit of anxiety, like when it really matters. That helps with focus and attention. And if you talk to elite athletes, they'll kind of confirm that. It's not when they're in this a sleep state, and it's not when they're like completely stressed out. It's, there's a bit of anxiety there to focus them. And that's important when we're really approaching, challenging goals and challenging tasks, but you don't want to have that elevated anxiety all the time. And so that's where some of the mindfulness and relaxation exercises, and I used to do a lot of those, and still do many times if I find that I'm I am in a heightened state of anxiety, but I don't seem to. I've kind of been able to break free of the what would I say it, the thought patterns, the spiraling thought patterns that lead to that. And it's that rumination and kind of engaging with those negative thoughts that come into your mind. And one of the big steps was a realization that, are these thoughts, these unwanted thoughts, really mine? Because a lot of what the automatic thoughts that come into our minds, they've been instilled in us through our nurturing. Yeah. And so, and that's actually as far as we know, that's kind of the one of the big differentiators between humans and animals. There are animals that are physically self-aware, but we can be aware of our own thought patterns. and you can kind of take this step back and observe those, and that allows you to approach it from a higher level where you're not automatically forced to be stuck in those the negative rumination and thought patterns. So, and there's some strategies that I used in getting good at that, taking a step back and not engaging with automatic thought patterns that I didn't want to engage with.
And I'd like to go into those strategies, if that's okay, because I hear a lot of entrepreneurs that they're like, there's always something like a story, that we're telling ourselves that, I need to always be on for my clients. I need to always be there for my team. I must, like, these are signs. And then on the other end, we always have like, well, I'm not doing enough. I should be doing more. And so what are the strategies that entrepreneurs who now realize that they get caught in those, I call them like thinking vortex, and you actually help them not necessarily snap out, because I don't think that there's any magic to it, but it's a strategy and it's a tool that we can take. But what would be some?
Well, one that I really liked is called cognitive diffusion. And what that really, because early on in my journey, I used to try to rid my mind of negative thoughts, but we're curious individuals. And so if you tell yourself, don't think of pink elephants, the first thing that comes to your mind is a pink elephant. Yeah. And so it's futile to try to rid your mind of the negative thoughts, and exhausting. And that's exactly where I was. Like, I'm kind of like, beating myself up about, why does this keep coming back into my mind? And, can't you snap out of it? Can't you just, focus on something else? And I think it comes down to that almost curiosity. Our minds get bored, and that's something that is tied with an emotion, one or more emotions, and so it pops back into our mind. So the cognitive diffusion, it's kind of let those thoughts be, but don't emotionally engage with them. And so you kind of, and I often kind of picture the thought floating in, from one side of my head through my ear, even though this is not actually what is happening cognitively, but it helps with the just to picture
mental picture, yeah.
Yeah. And then just kind of watch it as if it's not necessarily me. It's, this is something that's been maybe instilled in me, or at least something I don't want to engage with. And maybe I do. Like, sometimes I would take it to the next level. And this is not so much cognitive diffusion, but I would kind of sample the thought. Is this something I want to devote 10
precious
minutes
time.
to mental? Precious time to churning through, because sometimes there are challenges that we have to. And if not, I would just kind of, allow the thought to be there, but don't mentally engage, and it kind of then floats out of your head. Your mind gets bored, and then the next thought comes in. And that's the cognitive diffusion, not taking that step back. That's the duality of mind, so we can kind of observe our own thoughts without emotionally engaging with them. Yeah.
And I find the observing our mind, observing our behaviors, our reaction, our actions, just take a step back, can change absolutely everything.
Yeah, well, it certainly gives you a new perspective, and you start to notice things that you didn't notice, and that's one of the benefits in being able to kind of calm yourself and not operate in kind of disaster mode where you're always putting out fires, because it's very difficult to we go into production mode when we're in high anxiety, but it's very difficult to have any kind of innovative thoughts. And so you just, you're production focused, but you might be just working very hard in the wrong direction. And that's why you need some creativity. And the creativity happens when you're not in a state of high anxiety.
So I observe the thought, which also emotionally gives me a space there. What do I do next?
Well, focus on, if you're doing the sampling where you kind of say, well, is this something I have to deal with? And you say, no, this is just a, kind of that noise in my mind. If you're, working on that, which is kind of, I would say it's a meditation or a mindfulness practice. So if your goal is to just kind of, calm yourself, then I would just, what a good strategy is often focus on your breath, or at least just kind of allow thoughts to come and go, and that'll allow your body to calm down. Now, you can't do that all the time, and so really what you want to move towards is purposeful thinking. So you choose what you want to focus on and what you want to pursue. And so that's kind of seeding your mind with the right type of thinking. And a lot of that is focusing more on the positive. So that, and that, I would say that tunes your perception as well. That as far as I've been able to tell, that's the reason why it's important to focus on the positive. And some people take that to the extreme where you kind of, it's all
everything is rainbows and
roses and butterflies, and that's not really what I mean. It's more being solutions focused. And when you do focus on the positive, it tunes your perception in that we can't cognitively process most of what we take in through our five senses. But when you tune your perception, now you start to notice those small little positive things that you can capitalize on that will help move you forward, rather than if you're in the negative space. Now you just start to notice more and more negative things. And I've experienced both of those, and probably everyone listening has. If you'll have one of those days where something bad happens in the morning, and it seems like karma's out to get you.
Murphy's Law, it just expands that day. But at the same time, like when everything is
perception,
good,
though,
everything seems to be good.
Yeah, exactly. So you start the day focusing on the negative, you just start to notice more and more horrible things that are in your life. So
I love that concept. And it's the first time I hear that, of purposeful thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really to be more intentional with what are we thinking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And could that lead, so this, I'm assuming it leads us to think, like really directing our thinking pattern on what's actually going to serve us.
Exactly. Yeah,
versus,
you want to find solutions to the challenges that you're facing. So.
I really like that idea of purposeful thinking, because we're just so in automation all the time. And I find that nowadays, and with everyone being so busy and with everything that's happening with, like, there's some type of virus going on, let's not talk about it, but and entrepreneurs are just so busy, and people tend to be now even more in isolation, that we're more in reactive mode than in intentional mode.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's an important shift. And I can relate to what you're saying there with a lot of entrepreneurs, how it can be kind of lonely, and it's ironic to some degree as speakers, because whenever we're on the road, we're with hundreds of people, but it's not like they're short-term relationships, and certainly I try to capitalize on those, but you kind of need something that's more, what would I say, solid. And actually, that's one of the I think joining different philanthropy groups and things like that. Like I'm a Rotarian, for example, and one of the I like a lot of the work certainly that we do through Rotary, but also it's it's something that is what would I say? It's a social aspect that's stable in my home community, and certainly people that are experiencing kind of that lonely at the top. What do they call it? Syndrome.
Yeah, and
social connection.
Yeah, that, and I totally can relate, because yes, when you're a speaker, you talk to many people, but you're still on.
Yeah.
So an entrepreneur who is with clients all day long, he's with people, but it's still showtime.
Yeah, no, that's the difference, and it's the quality of relationships and the depth of them rather than the quantity that is important. And the social media studies have shown that again and again. Having many friends online really doesn't cut it psychologically. You need one or two really good, deep social relationships.
So, what would be, like, I'm pushing my luck, maybe, like, the top recommendations you would have for an entrepreneur who is ruminating in the thoughts, let it be an anxiety or depression, either one, but ruminating in there, is feeling a challenge of being in performance mode because he's talking to a lot of people or she's talking to a lot of people, but there's no connection there.
Yeah.
And then they're feeling that their mindset and they're kind of losing themselves in there. What would be your recommendation?
Well, what's maybe made them successful is that they're able to perform well in that situation, and so I don't know if it varies a little bit by the individual. Like maybe they don't want to be in those situations, be like completely relaxed and just kind of lackadaisical, because you're not going to be as sharp in your rational decision. So a good balance there is to make sure you have time away from that. And I try to do that actually when I'm traveling for speaking engagements. I try to either go skiing in the area or go for a hike or something like that. And so then at least you're balancing that those times of high anxiety. Now it's probably relative, and you could say, well, even when you're on, is it an unhealthy level of on? And so then you probably should work on that. But even a healthy level, you just need to make sure you kind of balance it with some me time and some relaxation and some and maybe it's social time with friends. Certainly the having the social connections is critical, and a lot of studies have shown that you just we're social beings, so
We tend to forget that a lot.
mm-hmm.
And so we tend to perform, we tend to be there for others, but kind of forget to be there for the human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's because a lot of us are raised, kind of, it's rooted maybe in humility to kind of put yourself last and focus on, put everyone else before you, but you're not very effective at that when you've neglected yourself. And so I would argue start with making sure you're in a good mental and physical state, and then you're healthy enough and in the right mindset to be able to expand that to your community or your clients.
Yes. And we feel when somebody they're living their best life.
Mm-hmm.
And that as an entrepreneur is actually even one of the best business development strategy, because you become magnetic. People are like, I want to work with her. I want to work with him. But it starts with feeding inside to be able to share it.
Yeah, exactly. People can kind of sense that energy, and you have to be an example of what you're trying to what is it? What you're trying to share with others, with the strategies that you're trying to share with others. Have you actually lived them and validated them in your own life?
And that we could do a whole interview on that alone, because how many times do I work with entrepreneurs and they're like, yeah, I help my clients live their best life. And I'm like, are you living your best life? And they're like, and
let's not talk about that.
And that's it. Let's just focus on my clients. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. The role of the leader is to model the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we forget that.
Yeah. And you have to sometimes think back to why did we become entrepreneurs to begin with? And a lot of it is that freedom to choose our own path, and we can get so caught up in the work that we lose the benefit that we pursued the path, the reason why we pursued that path to begin with.
Yeah. Which brings us back to your concept of purposeful thinking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like, because yes, many entrepreneurs just build their own cage and they have the key in their pocket and they're like, I'm stuck there. I have to work and I have to do this and I have to be there. And it's like, but you've built your own cage. Like how,
yeah.
Why do we do that? So
yeah.
That is very fascinating. Alan, thank you. If people are looking for more information on the topics you cover in your books, where could they find you online?
They can certainly go to my website, alanmallory.com. If anyone's particularly interested in the mental health and kind of moving forward, then my new book, Summits of Self, which looks like this.
I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of an exciting time because it just launched about a week and a half ago now, and a lot of my life is in that book. Like it took I don't know how long I was writing it, maybe 5 years, but that would be a good one to look at if you're interested. I mean, I've kind of gotten known as the Everest guy, and so my first book is called The Family That Conquered Everest. It's a really exciting adventure story, but in terms of practical tools and strategies, the Summits of Self is really more of it's more of a practical tool for people. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I'll make sure I put all the links in the video description, because I think now more than ever, we need to summit ourselves. We need to conquer ourselves. We need to become the leader we are supposed to be.
Exactly. And that was it. There's a famous quote by Sir Edmund Hillary. He said, "It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." And so, I mean, in some ways, with that, I love that quote. I don't know if conquer is the right word, because conquer kind of makes it seem like it probably is the right word, but don't make it a war.
Yeah, that's it. That's
with yourself.
Yeah.
And I was kind of there. I was at war with myself. You want to be at peace with yourself while you work through the different challenges that life throws at you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure. Yep.
I know for many of us as entrepreneurs, we're so in our head, we're so rational, intellectual, that we kind of don't see, why should I pay attention to this? But as I said in our intro and during our conversation, it is the best gift that we can give ourselves. Become purposeful, like diffuse and observing our thought, being conscious and aware of where are we bringing our thought, and embodying the message that we want to share. Because once we get those pieces right, that's where we see that so much more is possible. So if you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for more tools to build and grow your service-based business, come on over to our website at sarahgilbert.coach, and you'll get these episodes and so much more right in your inbox. We talk about marketing, productivity, mindset, all the tools you need to succeed. So thank you for being here week after week, and I will see you next Tuesday.